Welcome back. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has begun his two-day visit to France. Prime Minister Modi will be the guest of honor at the French National Day Parade, also known as Bastille Day Parade. On the arrival, Prime Minister received a grand welcome. He also interacted with the Indian diaspora who were waiting to greet him at the hotel. PM Modi met President of the Senate, Gerard Larcher, and will shortly be meeting Prime Minister Élisabeth Borne later this evening here in India, and early evening in France. The PM will interact with the Indian diaspora and meet President Macron. A host of deals are also set to be signed during this meeting. So what's on the Prime Minister's agenda? Number one, defense cooperation, maritime security, scientific advancements, energy security, cultural exchange, economic cooperation, and of course trying to very strongly advocate for a permanent seat for India in the UN Security Council. A host of deals are expected to be signed during the PM's visit to France. 26 Rafale Marine for the Indian Navy, 3 additional Scorpene submarines, co-developing the combat jet engines, decision on Jaitapur nuclear power plant project, cooperation on the next-gen helicopter engines. The PM has also spoken on various issues in an interview to a French magazine, where he has highlighted that India deserves its place in a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. How can the world's largest democracy not get a seat there? Meanwhile, joining us right now en route, but after a busy training session, Squadron Leader Sindhu Reddy, who will command the IAF contingent. The Tri-Services contingent is there, and she's going to be leading the Air Force contingent. Thank you very much, Squadron Leader Sindhu Reddy. Thank you for speaking with us. Let me first ask you, Republic Day to Bastille Day. How is it similar? How is it different?
Okay, so it's not very different actually. The feeling has been the same. But like in Republic Day, I had the chance to represent my service on our Kartavya Path and on our National Day. Tomorrow on Bastille Day, I will have the privilege to represent our country in front of our Prime Minister, who will be witnessing the show on the National Day of France. And the feeling, however, has been the same in terms that the French people are equally enthusiastic about their National Day. And we've been getting a tremendous response from the French troops as well about our parade. So we are excited about the same in a similar way.
This is a tri-service exercise, but is there a sense of competition? Who's better than who?
The competition is just on our Republic Day. However, over here in Bastille Day, since we are representing our country and we are marching as one, in terms that the Tri-Service contingent is marching as one and is leading the parade on the Bastille Day. It's not a competition, but it's equally challenging, and it is equally, it's a pride moment for all of us.
What about with the French? They are having their National Day. Their services is also on the parade. They are on display. I'm sure it's healthy, but still.
Yeah, so basically, we being, our parade being top-notch, we practiced a lot. We practiced for about 3 weeks before coming here. So the day one that we started our practice with the French, we had them astonished. So they were bewildered and they said, your parade is just wow. So they have been trying to catch up with us since day one, and their parade is equally good. But yes, they've all been very astonished by the way we march and the amount of energy and enthusiasm we have during our march past.
So that must have felt good. थोड़ा collar up हो गया होगा ना?
Yes. It was like a what do you call it? It was equally it's a pride moment, and it was like an honor to all of us. Just after the first practice that we received, they said your marching is perfect. So, yeah.
That's nice. That's fantastic. But tell me, Squadron Leader Sindhu, was there anybody who was surprised to see a woman leading the contingent?
The French have the concept of the contingent commander being the most decorated, and they are all quite senior. So we as in the Tri-Services, all the three of us being amongst the ranks of not really that senior, but yeah, we are all a rank of I'm squad leader, and the army he's a captain. So they were really surprised that how such young people are leading the parade. They were really thrilled about that. And they even today they approach us and they keep asking tips about how they can improve their parade and how they can improve the command. So yeah, that way it's an honor for us, and it's we've felt really wonderful talking to people about this.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I feel so proud sitting here. I can only imagine how proud you must be feeling. But what happens next? Any butterflies in the stomach ahead of the big day?
Not really, because we've been practicing for almost a week here, and the practice has been quite grueling, and we've practiced quite a number of times. But yes, we have the enthusiasm because it's all new for us, and this experience is entirely new. The format of the parade is new, the people are new, and the layout is new. So we're all excited to see how it unfolds, and very excited to see the reaction of the people on the D-Day.
You've become quite a celebrity back home. Videos are going viral. Are people queuing up there also to take selfies with you and your colleagues?
So yes, basically all three contingent commanders have been quite a celebrity over here in during the practice as well. In fact, our liaison officer who's with us, he keeps taunting us. He says, you should charge €1 per selfie every time you take a photo, and you'll be a millionaire already.
Well, you've already gotten into the hearts of millions here. Continue to do the country proud. All the best to you at the Bastille Day Parade and beyond. Look forward to speaking with you very, very soon again. Squadron Leader Sindhu Reddy, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We should try and get Sanjay Suri live in just a bit. And also former diplomat Ambassador Rakesh Sood should be joining us. But first, let's go across to Francois Gauthier, French journalist who is with us. Namaste. Thank you very much. So good to speak with you.
Same here.
Let me ask you, sir, how significant is this visit? And why is it important for France? Ambassador Rakesh Sood should also be joining us. But yes, Mr. Gauthier.
You see, there's an economic clout that India is becoming to way economically. That is the important thing. That Mr. Modi comes, he's going to buy 26 Rafale and six submarines, and eventually there'll be more, in shopping bag, he's going to bring back more things. So I think everything is in terms of economy now. The Chinese are feared and they are respected because they weigh a lot economically, much more than India actually. But India is coming up. It's a good thing. I've been defending India in France for a long time. I've been telling the French for a long time that look more towards India than China, because India is a democracy. It's a Western-loving people. There is a judicial system in place that works. So you should invest more into India than France, than China. So it's happening, and I'm happy about it. There are many buts, though. There are many buts, and so we can eventually go about the buts, but I think it's a great thing that Mr. Modi is the guest of honor of. Tomorrow is our national day, what is our Independence Day, 14th of July. It's a very important day because the French Revolution happened on the 14th of July, where the jail, where the king used to put all the political prisoners, the Bastille was taken over by the people of France. So it's a very symbolic thing that Mr. Modi has been invited. I have a few reservations because...
Why don't you share them? Go ahead. Then we'll get Ambassador Rakesh Sood to respond to that. Yes, go ahead, please.
Sure.
So what are the buts? Mr. Gauthier, please go ahead. What are the buts? What are the reservations?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I am. Then I'll bring in Ambassador Rakesh Sood so he can respond to your reservations. Ji.
Sure.
Go ahead, please, Mr. Gauthier. You please express your reservations first.
All right.
Then I'll bring in Ambassador Sood. Ji.
See, for instance, for the UN, France has been saying for a long time that we support India's being a candidate for the UN Security Council, but knowing that China will oppose it every time. So it doesn't cost France anything. In terms of nuclear energy, the French have been saying for a long time we'll have a cooperation with India on nuclear energy, but it's not happened. So far, France has not sold or collaborated on a nuclear plant in India. So this is one of the, points that I feel is important. The support, the French media keeps saying, or the Indian media rather keeps saying that France never opposed India's nuclear explosion, in 98. It was the only country in the world, but France had just done a nuclear explosion of its own in the Pacific, so it could not really oppose India when it itself had just done a nuclear explosion that was opposed by most of the world, and that was, criticized a lot. I think, the fact that Mr. Macron also went to China, he was supposed to come to India in January. We were expecting him to come here, and instead he flew to China with a huge business delegation. So yes, India is coming up, but it's a small beginning, and we should not get over enthusiastic because there's a lot of hostility towards Mr. Modi in France. I've been trying to write a biography in French on Mr. Modi for a long time. I find that the media, like Le Monde, or even the rightist paper Le Figaro, for which I worked for a long time, or France 24, which is the main news channel in France, have a lot of hostility towards Mr. Modi. In fact, there are quite a few French MPs who are boycotting tomorrow's national celebration and said, we will not attend because Mr. Modi, someone who's got a very bad human rights record.
So the mood and the narrative has been set in a particular manner in France, but France has also seen that those people who have backed such narratives and who have set such narratives, and when they backed certain other entities, what they unleashed on the streets of France across the length and breadth of the nation not so long ago. But Ambassador Rakesh Sood, what would you think should be India's biggest takeaway? Cooperation with the Jaitapur plant beyond just the UN Security Council support? You think that's the biggest aspect if we are buying 26 Rafale from
them? Not at all. I think what is important is to keep it in perspective. And while Francois Gautier's reservations are very valid, I still think that the fact that it is 25 years since India and France established their strategic partnership. In fact, France was the first country with which we established our strategic partnership. Today, we have more than 30. And this happened in 1998. So we are celebrating 25 years of that. And since that time, it has grown. It was, in the beginning, it was limited to nuclear, space, and defense. Since then, it has embraced many other sectors. It has embraced counterterrorism. It has embraced Indo-Pacific. It has embraced smart city development, urban development. It has embraced climate change, International Solar Alliance. So there are a huge number of areas. Today we have more than 40 bilateral dialogues with France.
Right.
So it is no longer a relationship that is just limited to defense. Secondly, I think it is a fact that France has the second largest exclusive economic zone in the Indian Ocean. It has its exclusive economic zone because of Reunion and Mayotte Islands is as much as 2.7 million square kilometers.
Right.
Therefore, it has its own overseas territories where it has French citizens living, and therefore it has permanent military presence. So therefore, automatically, there is a synergy in terms of what we feel about the security of the Indo-Pacific region.
Right.
And that is why we had a vision statement a few years ago on the Indo-Pacific from a high-level visit. Now, this time around, I think we are going to see, in addition to the areas that I've already mentioned, and Jaitapur and nuclear is one of them, certainly. Although I don't know how the two leaders are going to give a boost to that, because it has been lagging, unfortunately, for something like more than 15 years.
Right.
because of liability laws and our inability to address French concerns regarding our liability laws. However, if the two leaders can push that, I think it would be a great step forward. But I think we will probably see major developments in the field of defense, space, people to people, and possibly in terms of trade.
In terms of trade. I'm just going to pause for a bit with the guests. Gentlemen, please stay with me. I'm quickly going across to my good friend and colleague Sanjay Suri, who's traversed all the way from London into Paris, and you seem to be at a place of significance for today. Is this where the diaspora meet is going to happen, Sanjay?
Yes, right behind, and you can see these people filing in, and they've started queuing up about 3 hours in advance. Nobody's taking chances. This is a little bit on the outskirts of Paris, and so people have been making their way on metro and taxis and other ways. And of course, this early arrivals are some index of the enthusiasm for Mr. Modi among the Indian diaspora here in France.
I'm going to keep an eye out behind you, and the moment there are a few people of the Indian diaspora passing by, I'm going to request you to turn around and call them back. I know you have limited mobility given the fact that you are on a camera that you're operating on your own. But how has the response been? Francois Gauthier is with us, and he says there's been quite a bit of hostility that the Prime Minister is seeing among the polity and also among the press in France. Is that true? How's the response been to that interview that he's given to a French newspaper?
Well, there certainly is a very strong left-wing element in the media in France, and that necessarily is hostile to Mr. Modi. There's absolutely no doubt about that. There is also a question here about communication. There hasn't been a great deal of communication between the Indian government and between the French people. The exchanges we've had have been at the government level between the government and also leading companies such as Dassault that are set to supply, are expected to supply the new set of Rafales to India. That hasn't been signed and completed yet. It may be through this visit, but the concentration is at that level, and it hasn't moved beyond that. Not even into trade and investment, which is the sort of bread and butter of relationships that are economic to any extent at all. The extent of trade between India and France is less than half of that between India and Germany. And France ranks 5th in India's trade with even European countries. It's a very small level of trade. The concentration seems to be on that one word, Rafale. The Rafale does it. And to that extent, certainly it's a great aircraft. The Indian forces want it, they need it. And if they can have it, good for them. Of course, let's not fool ourselves that this is some great Indo-French equation being built. The French are doing it for money. They are in it for the business, and they are very hard bargainers. And just look at the Jadavpur plant issue. There is no political impediment. They have no problem with supplying nuclear energy. So there's no ideological or political obstacle in the way, but they're hard bargainers. And so it will be with the aircraft and the submarines.
So they will bargain hard. Francois Gauthier, how is India going to see through this? Is there any way to correct this hostility, this perception? Is cultural exchange, people to people connect, is it going to help? Yes, Mr. Gauthier.
Yeah, I'm a Frenchman, so I should say, everything is rosy, everything is beautiful. But I love India. I've been defending India for a long time. What India needs is a geopolitical support against China and against Pakistan. Now, this is not happening. These are just words that are happening. And then I see that Indian diaspora. I don't know what Indian diaspora you're talking about, because there is no Indian diaspora in France except Tamil French. Tamil from Pondicherry, who have taken the French nationality in 1956 or 57 and were chosen to live in France. So there's a very little Indian diaspora in France, to my knowledge. I don't know. To my knowledge, I've been, in India for a long time and shuttling between France and India. So I know that compared to the UK, or compared to the US, or even Canada, where there's a huge Indian diaspora, France has a very tiny Indian diaspora. Nothing to boast about. Now, I want to be optimistic, but in terms of real stuff that is happening, I don't see much. India needs support in Kashmir, for instance. France recognizes Tibet as part of China. Why can't it recognize Kashmir as part of India? It wouldn't cost France so much, but they haven't done it. In terms of maritime problems, the problem that India is facing and that the whole of Southeast Asia is facing in the seas between the China Sea and the Indian Ocean, there should be a French collaboration on the ground, on the seas between the Indian Navy and the French Navy that confront the Chinese. The problem is that nobody wants to confront the Chinese because the big business is still with China. So France is not going to confront China. France is investing 10 times more in China than it does in India. I know there are progressive. Again, I want to be optimistic, but I know also the statistic that it was true 20 years ago, it's still true today. France is investing 10 times more in China than in India. And all companies do well in China. The French Hermes, all the luxury items, which they don't in India. Chanel opened an office in India 6-7 years ago. They closed it down after 3 years because it didn't work. So I want to see real meaningful stuff happening within France. And I would be the happiest because I'm French. I live in India. I want the French to look at India as a ground of economical and geopolitical investment.
Have things changed in the last 5, 6 years, 7 years, not just in France, but also in India? Ambassador Rakesh Sood, what is it that India needs to do to change the narrative? Or does India really need to work very hard with France? Or on France?
I think, as I mentioned to you in my opening remarks, at a government-to-government level, which is the strategic level, there is already a very strong positive movement that has existed for the last 25 years. Now, government-to-government relations are focused on the strategic areas of nuclear, defense, space, counterterrorism, and areas like that. The attempt has been to translate that into a greater amount of people-to-people connect. To an extent, that is already happening. About 10 years ago, we used to get about 2,500 students going to France every year for higher education. There were language issues, obviously. Indian students would prefer to go to US, Canada, UK, Australia. Now, France has a number of bilingual institutions. Many of their management institutions and engineering institutions now conduct courses in English. We had set up a target of 10,000 Indian students every year. That target was supposed to have been met in 2025. It's already been achieved. Now, there are 10,000 Indian students going every year to France for higher education.
But there are 100,000 Chinese students in France, more than 100,000 Chinese students in France at the moment.
I agree. It is as much a foreign language, but for the Chinese, English is also a foreign language.
For
the Indians, English is not so much of a foreign language.
As difficult for a Chinese to learn French than for an Indian.
It is as difficult for the Chinese.
100,000 Chinese students in France and only 10,000. I mean, this is an old story that I have talked with French ambassadors for a long time who said, we're making an effort, we're giving more scholarships to Indian students. But the result is that there is still, the Chinese have flooded France. In every metro there are,
Francois,
Chinese,
listen to me.
The
Chinese provide scholarships. We don't provide scholarships. Please understand. And the French have not made it any easier because of their visa policy. Because both in US and in UK, students who do higher education courses get 2 years to pay off their student loans. So therefore, there is a difference. Now we are seeing a movement because the French are also conducting dual language courses, which makes it easier for the Indians to come in. There are today 1,000 French companies that are already invested in India. 39 of the
How many
top
French companies
40,
are there in Indian company in France?
they
There
are
are very few.
They
There
are
very
working
few.
in India.
Why
So
pro?
there is no.
You know.
I mean, let me finish, Francois.
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
I didn't interrupt you when you were talking. So I think that there is a certain amount of work that needs to be done. Yes, the German relationship, the India-Germany relationship is focused entirely on the economic and commercial aspect and not on the strategic areas like nuclear, defense, etc. But there is a reason for it. The German industry, the German economy is also structured differently because the German multinationals, when they travel, they carry the German MSMEs, the medium, small, and micro enterprises with them. In France, that doesn't happen. We've seen that in the past. That is why Peugeot, when they came to India, failed to make a dent. So either they find a good joint venture partner, or they have to then fall back on getting their own supply chain systems operational in India. So the French have a different. So I don't think that the French relationship with India or the German relationship with India are comparable in that sense. Even Netherlands has more trade with India than France does. But that doesn't mean that the French relationship is less important than that India has with Netherlands. The French, the relationship that we have with France is far more critical
but one
than
question,
any other European relationship,
Yes.
except perhaps for the UK, and that is for the reasons of the diaspora.
right? Ambassador Su, just Francois Gauthier, and then I have a question. Yes, Francois.
No, I mean, there is no substance, you know. I mean, I would like to say that there is a great substance. There is no substance. The only thing is that India has got buying power now. You know, Indigo has bought, I don't know, 500 Airbuses, and then Mr. Modi is coming to buy 26 Rafale. The Rafale is probably the most expensive fighter plane in the world, so it's going to be a huge bill, and the 3 submarines. So apart from that, I don't see any substance. I see a lot of hype, you know, like these NRIs in Paris. But, you know, I've been defending Mr. Modi for a long time, much before he became Prime Minister, and I have known him for a long time. But I find that now there is a kind of, you know, throwing media hype, you know, like when he goes to Karnataka and a million rose petals are thrown on him, and then the BJP loses badly in Karnataka. So France, yes, it's a good visit and it's a guest of honor. This is important, but it's way behind China. We're way behind China in terms of the French interest, economic interest, political interest. The French, you know, Mr. Modi has been accused of human rights abuse, but actually India is a country where there's so much freedom. You know, I mean, I've been defending Mr. Modi on that count. You know, and again, I saw today in the France 24, which is the main news channel in France, it's both English, French, and Arabic. I saw, you know, a whole report by a lady called, I think, Jacinthe Pinto. She's a Goan Indian, Goan Christian Indian. So negative, so saying that human rights are, and you know, I mean, this is more important to my mind is that
that is something, Francois.
Let me finish, because this is important. This is more important than buying Airbuses or Scorpions, you know, that France understands, respects India and appreciates India rightfully. This is much more important than this is
Fair
all,
point
you know,
made. Fair point made. Fair point made. I have to interrupt you because I have run out of time on the show. Francois Gauthier and Ambassador Rakesh Su, thank you so much. Winding up the right stand on that note, Zaka Jacob with Brass Tacks.